Hi, welcome to the GF channel. Today's episode I'm very excited of, something that actually I did invest quite a lot of time in researching and trying out stuff. We're adding two functions to the window module of the 626. Now, let me back up and actually tell you the story how I came up to that, because to understand the way it's actually going to be modified and what parts to use, you need the full story. Everything started with me looking at this owner's menu of the Mazda 6. This is the GG, the pre-facelift version, 2003-2004. And I was looking at it, and then I noticed in it there is this functionality, engine off power window operation, that says that 40 seconds after you switch off ignition, you will have power, so you can actually use it to close the window. And I was like, okay, maybe I have it, I just haven't noticed. So this now is lit, it's operable, but if I turn it off, this actually turns off and there is no one there. I was like, okay, that actually is an added function. They did it on the 6, they probably copied the 626 module, because, well, it looks pretty much the same. They copied it and added the function. But to make sure, I have this training manual here, which is all the changes from the first generation of Mazda 6 GG, the pre-facelift version, compared to previous other models, because that's actually the first model. So here it says what part is actually taken from which car, and here you can see it actually says that the power window system is the same as current Premacy CP, except of the following. Instead of the limit switch in the Premacy, it uses two kinds of pulse signals. The Premacy at that point had a facelift, so the current is actually the facelifted Premacy. And I'll go back to that just while I'm on that. That's how it looks like. Two pulses going from the motor to the module. Two pulses. We're going to see in a bit how the other one works. And then I actually saw this table down here, which said automatic return, then this two-step down function. And I was like, what the hell is that? So I dig up the Premacy owner menu, and in it we have this two-step down function. And it actually says that when it's completely closed, the window, and you lightly press the open, it will open the window with 3 centimeters, 1 inch, from the top for convenient ventilation of the cabin. That's quite cool. So you see me press it, and I said, okay, let's see how, maybe I have it. I don't know. So I did that, and a little press, didn't even move. It's like another press, it's not yet opened. Another press, and now it's opened. So 3 presses to actually open it, not 3 centimeters. way less than 3 centimeters. I want that. And so then I actually went back and to look at this table, and I saw that in here the engine off is called ignition off timer. So I actually opened up all the documentation I had about the 626, the GF, and searched for timer. Doesn't matter if it's in ignition off or engine off. I decided I'm going to search for a timer. And in this changelog, this is for the 1999 plus 626, so the facelifted 626. In this one, it actually, they do mention this ignition off timer. That's the only mentioning in the documentation of the 626 for the ignition of timer. So apparently they did had it as an intention to implement it, but they left it out for some reason and they forgot to remove it from the documentation because the car doesn't have such a function. And the way you can tell, it's not only by doing it in the car, but if we actually start going up, that's the change lock again. This is going to tell us from where the 626 facelift got its functions for the power window system, and this is it. The power window system, again, from the current Premacy. At that point, 1999, the Premacy was actually the pre-facelift version, so there was no Premacy. It was actually just they just released the Premacy overall first model. So here in this table you see auto open and close, power cut, and automatic return. Nothing more. No timers, no ignition of timer, no two-step down function, no failsafe, nothing. Actually, there is failsafe. We're going to go down now. I'm going to scroll you, but you can see based on this table that the only function added is the automatic return compared to the pre-facelift. This is how it looks like. There are the two, one is a limit switch, the other one is a pulse generator, and how this is the schematics, how this thing works. The pulse generator, this is how it's these turn and pulse like that. And then the limit switch, this is the limit switch, basic operation of the limit switch. At some point it's going to actually switch. So this is a spiral here, a path that this slider slides into. We're going to see that later on when I disassemble it. And at some point it actually hits contacts and gives signal. And then there's the failsafe, which is in the main switch, and it's only for the sensor. I don't know what exactly it does, but compared to the Premacy, the facelifted 626 has an additional pin, and it allows this pin is for sensor power supply. And as it says here, the 626 has power supply for the pulse generator, and therefore it has fail-safe function of the sensor power supply. I have no idea what as a function in some fail-safe, I don't know. But you could go without it, no problem, which you're going to see in a bit that I did. And so I decided that since the 6 has structural change, it doesn't use a power, it doesn't use a switch, and it uses instead again a generator. Instead I have to aim at trying the module for the Premacy, and I thought, well, maybe the pinouts are the same and I just buy the module, swap it, and voila. So this is the pinout for the 626, and all the pinout I could dig up of the Premacy. It's actually in Russian, and it's for the pre-facelifted Premacy. So basically this is the older version than this one. Since this is based on the other one, this is the older version. Then they come up with the facelifted one, which I do not have documentation on what it is based. And then the 6 actually takes on from the facelifted version Premacy. Basically both 626 and 6 get it from the Premacy, but the 626 get it from the pre-facelift version Premacy, while the 6 gets it from the facelifted Premacy, and they both improve it. So main thing here, we are interested in the powers. Are they on the same spot? And we are also interested in those signals. Are they on the same spot? Are they the same output? And when you look at it, they actually are exactly the same. So 1F goes with switched on and on locked. So this is switched 12 volts through a power fuse on ignition one line, 1F. And we have here 1F, this is it. Again switched on and lock. You can see, you can tell without even understanding the language. Then sorry, I have something on my throat. Then on 1H, ground, and it says continuity here. 1H, again ground. This you pretty much need to know the language. And then again power supply, 1L or I or I have no idea, under any condition, B+. And here go on the same spot we have B+ under any condition. And then we have the 2s. At 2B we have, maybe I go here because it's easier to read since I do not understand the language either. 2A is the power supply for the post generator. That's the new pin that is not available on the pre-facelifted Premacy. The 2B is the limit switch on and off, and it says that it has to have continuity between 2C terminal, 2C, when fully opened. And here you can see for the 2B, it says that it has continuity, and it doesn't have continuity again with the 2C. And the rest should also be like when the window is fully opened. Then on the 2C is actually the ground, and 2C ground, it says here, and the 2D post generator. When the glass is in motion, it goes between 0 and 1, and when the glass has stopped, it's either 0 or 5 volts, and here it says exactly the same thing. Bottom line, they are the same. So I went ahead and I bought the module. The facelifted version. I bought the facelifted version because the pre-facelifted Premacy module doesn't have the 2-step down and ignition off timer. I bought it. I plugged it in. It controls all the windows, but all the old functions are not working. And only the ignition off actually is working, but I lose all the other functions. And what happens is, basically, I'm going to explain it to you. The rail of the Premacy is longer, so the motor turns more times and produces more pulses. It's also different number of impulses are coming. And the module is smart enough to figure out something is wrong. I'm receiving the wrong amount of impulses while the glass is moving, and it goes into failsafe, which disables auto, only manual. You can still use it, but only manual, which defeats the purpose. I want to add functions without removing any. So then I decided I'm going to actually go and buy Premacy rail whole glass lifter and see what's all about. So I bought one, and I bought one from a 626 because I didn't want to actually ruin mine. I took them apart and started figuring out everything, and I'm going to pause here and go actually disassemble the what I have, but I actually basically built a prototype, fit it in here, and it did work. Not with this one, of course, but it did work. All functions, everything did work. So let me go disassemble all I can, because I also need to grease it, and when I was working I removed all the grease, so I bought new grease. I'm going to grease it also. I'm going to disassemble it now to show you better how things are doing, but keep in mind from the two I made one, so it's a hybrid between the 626 and the Premacy. Okay, let's go. And so here are all the parts that left from the hybrid. but I'm going to use them to start explanation of what I did and why I did it. The general idea is the following. The module doesn't accept the electronics of the 626, the pulse generator. So we need to swap it. Because to modify a pulse signal, it's kind of complicated. So let's try it mechanically. And mechanically is to actually replace the pulse generator itself. So what I did is I replaced it, and to replace it, let's see how first it works. The motor shaft, I'm going to show you in a bit, if I could actually, goes like that and turns this wheel. So this wheel is currently actually from the Premacy. I'm still using my original one, but this is from the Premacy. Then in this wheel you have this metal plank, which is actually from the 626, that goes like that. Now the 626 is like 1 millimeter bigger in diameter and doesn't fit, but the main part is these are on the same spots. So the Premacy one fits into the 626 one without any issues. And when this fits, this turns with, when the motor turns, this also turns. And now this actually is like that. And when this turns, it turns this shaft, this middle shaft. And on this shaft, on the two ends, it has two things. One of the things is exactly what we need to replace. It's this. And that's the logic, the whole logic with of the pulse generator and the limit switch. That's actually the limit switch that was actually, as I showed you previously on the documentation. That's how it looks like. It's wide based on this spiral here. There is a pin on top that keeps moving on this thing, and when it reaches certain point, it gives a contact on here. Simple. That's simple. The problem is with all of those cogs that they turn and they give pulses. The electronics is actually on the other way. I'm going to show you in a bit. The electronics is still on the motor, and we're not going to remove it. You'll see why. But basically we do not need this. We need the Premacy one, and the electronics is controlled by this thing, and the Premacy electronics do not fit here. So we need to switch that. Unfortunately, with that, on the other side goes this. This is where your cables, okay, maybe I'll do like that. This is like that, and it turns. And this is where your cables actually for lifting the glass are positioned. This means this will no longer also fit, and we need to use the Premacy one. So here is the hybrid here, which I did. This is the Premacy one. The cables are still from the 626, but since the length of the rail is different on the two cars, the length of the cables is also different on the two cars, and I couldn't use the original mounting hole here. I had to actually use one of these holes and just do a little bit of grinding here and place it in. Now these used to be a lot bigger, so I had to grind them down to be smaller so they fit in those, and that actually fixed this problem, and this also fits, no problems. I'm going to actually in a bit use some, let me close it, use some grease on it. Let's go to the other way, because that's the most important part. That's why we do everything. That's the leftovers from the electronics. We're not going to use them, but this is the sensing electronics here, which sense the rotation of the cogs on top. There is actually one magnetic thing that I've lost somewhere. Anyhow, we're not going to use it, but this actually is sealed, and that's one of the problems that yet need to be solved. There is the sealing, and then that's the cap, but I cannot place the cap because I'm blocking this, and not only, even if I place the cap and make a hole and everything, I'm limited in height because this is mounted to the door, so I cannot simply make something that's thick. Not going to use this. Instead, that's the electronics of the Premacy, at least for the pre-facelift version. Now I'm using the pre-facelift version, so it has only 3 wires, and as we discussed in the documentation, the 4th wire is only to get power, constant power, to the pulse generator, which provides some fail-safe function which I do not understand. I do not know what it is. With this signal missing, everything seems to be working, or other functions are working. Probably this is something if somehow somewhere something happens with the power, you have additional power. I don't know. I have absolutely no idea. It's not very explanatory. Now the plugs for the 2 are exactly the same. The 626 one has additional security when it comes to removing pins and inserting pins, while this one doesn't have, the Premacy one. After all, it's the pre-facelifted version. On the facelifted, probably it's like that. I don't know, but I'm not sure how this looks like on the facelifted version. This works beautifully. So after switching the shaft, you can see now this will fit here because it's from the Premacy, and you place it, and you can see that I have already cut here this hole, mounting hole, and that's the second problem I have to solve, how to mount it properly. For test I did some, as you can see, lots of cable ties. It did work, it holds it, but I'll probably glue it, because gluing with cable ties should be good. So from the whole thing, the only downside is this is not maintainable. If it breaks, you throw it in the garbage, because everything will be pretty much glued to make sure no water goes in. So you know the recipe, you have to make yourself another one if that breaks. And here inside, I can try showing you. Try it. Yes, I got it. Here inside, of course, there is no light. And that's where you actually install the metal plank. That's the metal plank, and that's the cog barely visible, the big one, and then that's the shaft of the motor. This doesn't want to have water in it, so everything here needs to be sealed off. We do not care about electronics, but we need to seal it off anyhow, because water could drip in from here to here, and then basically to everywhere. This whole thing needs to be sealed. Then this needs to somehow be glued. And then there is one final problem. This thing, as you can see, there is no way to actually control the limit switch. I don't know. I didn't find any documentation on the Premacy. How the hell do you control the limit switch? Because on the 626 there is a special hole where you insert something sharp, and you can reset the limit switch, which happens when you actually change your glass position, and this thing goes through the roof. Your window auto function won't work. It's going to always auto return when you auto close. That happens with this one also, if not properly installed. So what needs to happen is you need to make it something like that. So I measured it because this is visible from the top. Something like that. A little bit of space here only. At that point the glass is at the top, and you need to turn this. You need to first see how this is moving when you're moving this, to figure out in which direction you need to turn this, and turn it all the way to that direction, all the way to there, and then glue it. Because if you do not do that, you're going to glue something that it's then not going to work, because it's going to do auto return and you will be screwed because you glued it. So you have to be extremely careful. I'm going to retest that now because I may have turned it while doing the video. Retest it before gluing it, so I'm sure I'm gluing it in the proper position for the auto functions. Unfortunately, you won't figure out the auto function until you mount it to the car, because it is actually going to work properly, sliding. The problem is when it actually reaches the top with the glass, because it's not the top. This actually goes through the roof. If you allow it to, this is going to jump off. This rubber here will go off, and this is almost going to stick out. This doesn't happen with the glass on. And if you adjust it wrongly, it is going to think that something has jammed the window, and it's going to go back to the middle. Bad. Okay, so now I'll seal off this with some silicone, glue this, show you how it looks like, place it in the car, show you the final result. Okay, that's the final result. I did hot glue it. Before that I used some silicone to make sure no water goes in, although the glue also should do the same. I'm not planning on using cable ties because, well, there's shitload of glue. This is quite stable. Also the door will be right here holding this, so I think this is going to be good. And there's not quite a lot of space where exactly to use the cable tie, because I cannot wrap it around since there are moving parts at the back, so I can't do anything pretty much. So that's it. I have, as you can see, I've used some grease. I've greased it, and before I test it, let me show you how actually to remove it. First, the nylon here, don't think you need to remove it. There are two nuts here and two screws here that hold the lift. But before you remove the lift, you have to remove the glass. And to do that, you have to lower the lift so that there are two screws holding the glass right here, and one of the screws is easy, one is hard, so you need to actually make sure it's visible here to unscrew it. Then unscrew those, pull the glass out. It's quite easy. And then my advice is to get this up, not all the way up, but still up. It is going to be easier to pull it, and then you pull it out of here. And that's it. Then the same reverse order, you pull it back, place the nuts and screws, bring down the lift, place the glass, screw it, and it should be good to go. Okay, now let's assemble and see the final result. And so that's the final result. As you can see, I have already placed the PCB of the Premacy into my new shell. If you don't know about this shell, I have a video for it. Now, turn the ignition to on. This is on. Turn the ignition to off. This stays on, and it works. And interestingly, what I found out is that it has both manual, but it also has auto for the down while the ignition timer is running, ignition off timer, but there is no auto for up, interestingly. Okay, So that's one of the functions I wanted. It's here. The other one, the two-step down function. Now I'm at ignition and I barely touch it. Voila. Let's check the other functions. The down is working. Now I go up. I place my hand. It actually returned, and now I do not want to return. Yes, it doesn't return. Good, everything is here. Now the two-step down function is a configurable function, which means you can configure it to have it or not to have it. I might as well show you the procedure. It's written in the user manual for the Premacy, and it's the following. You have to be fast for this. I'm actually going to use my right hand because for this I also need the key. So turn the ignition on, press firmly twice, then up firmly again twice. It's always firmly. Then to off, then on again, press twice, pull twice. That's it. So the same thing twice, you do it. That's absolutely the same. Ignition on, twice down, twice up, ignition off, ignition on, twice down, twice up, off. And you have to be fast. That will flip it. So if it was on, it's going to be off, the two-step down function. If it was off, it's going to turn it on. So let's go. Okay, and now if I gently touch it, as you can see, barely opened, and my glass is dirty from all the removing I did. Okay, so now I'm not quite sure if the window needs to be fully closed for this procedure. I'm going to fully close it just to make sure it's working. So again, ignition on, double down, double up, ignition off, ignition on, double down. Fuck it, I screwed up. So let's just check. Yeah, it's not working. Let's go. Double down, double up, off. Double down, double up, off. And now it's supposed to be working. Barely touched it. It always goes like that. It's supposed to be 3 centimeters on the Premacy. I don't know, maybe 3 it's here also. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention is one of the bolts here is actually, you need to find a longer one because the Premacy logic board makes it a bit thicker, and the bolt there is it's going to be short. But a little bit longer one will do fine. And even though this is thicker and it pushes the whole assembly towards the door, it works beautifully, as you see. No problems at all. Okay. One thing, it's good to check, always good to check. I will leave the window like that. And now I'm going to double lock my car. Okay, it does work. That's the additional module that closes the windows, for which I have another video for. It doesn't seem to be affected from the new module, because on the Mazda 6 it is. That's it, that's all. I hope you enjoyed the video. Keep subscribed. I'll be posting more videos soon. Bye bye.